Mass protests in Paris and other cities across France after the government narrowly survives 2 votes of no confidence.
New York police bump up security ahead of former President Donald Trump's possible indictment.
A damning independent report finds London's Metropolitan Police Force to be institutionally racist, homophobic and misogynistic. There have been more protests in Paris and other cities across France after the government narrowly survived 2 votes of no confidence. They had been triggered when Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne used a special constitutional power called Article 49, Section 3, to push through a bill to increase the pension age to 64.
Il y a énormément de jeunes, mais parce qu'on pense que c'est un sujet qui ne nous concerne pas, mais alors qu'en fait, justement, si aujourd'hui nos grands-parents ils vont devoir arrêter de taffer tard, nous, on sait que ce sera pire, puisque en gros, c'est le chemin qu'on prend depuis une vingtaine d'années, avec des politiques de plus en plus libérales et qui répondent au capitalisme, alors que nous, on décide que c'est le peuple qui compte avant tout.
Et c'est trop important parce qu'on s'est foutu de nous, on ne voit pas l'avenir. Et le peu d'avenir qu'on peut entreapercevoir avec les droits sociaux qu'on avait avant, qui sont en train d'être cassés, on nous l'enlève. C'est pour ça qu'on est là.
Voilà, c'est la radicalité du mouvement qui fera plier la chose et Macron a ouvert une brèche qu'il n'est pas prêt de refermer en tout cas.
Over 100 people were arrested in Paris after a standoff with the police. President Emmanuel Macron says France's ageing population makes the current pension scheme unaffordable. The bill is now expected to pass into law, but tensions are likely to continue on the streets of France, with a major day of strike action and protests planned for Thursday.
Emmanuel Macron's government has narrowly survived 2 no-confidence votes here at the French National Assembly this Monday. Certainly a victory for the French president, but definitely not the end of his problems just yet. The French opposition had very harsh words to describe the last few days that saw Emmanuel Macron and his Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne go, quote-unquote, too far by triggering that constitutional mechanism that is going to see a contentious reform of the pension system bypass Congress and be approved without the vote of members of parliament, something that many among those members of parliament have called a threat to democracy. The fact that Emmanuel Macron is triggering this mechanism, is bypassing Congress, unveils, according to them, his real tyrannical tendencies with regards to this bill. A bill the opposition here in France has called useless and unjust, and that the Prime Minister has said is a difficult, unpopular measure, but one that is vital for the French economy. With this victory, the French government is going to adopt this measure and will effectively raise the retirement age here in France from 62 to 64, something that is likely to trigger even more unrest in the days and weeks to come, as you can probably tell with the number of riot police deployed around me. 70% of French voters have said that they are against the reform of the pension system here in France and have promised to continue to show that in the streets. Annelise Borges is in Paris for Euronews.
An independent report deeply damages the image of London's Metropolitan Police. Racism, misogyny and homophobia are deeply entrenched in the UK's largest police force. That's according to the review led by Louise Casey, commissioned in the wake of the abduction, rape and murder of 33-year-old Sarah Everard by a serving officer.
I think the evidence is pretty clear that the Met over polices and under protects, for example, the black community. If you look at the use of a stop and search, if you look at the use of force, it is disproportionately by a country mile done against black people rather than white people.
The report unpacks disturbing stories about the behaviour of the police. 12% of female officers have been harassed or assaulted at work, but these actions are often covered up or minimised. Minorities are over-surveilled on the streets and are not given sufficient protection. The conclusions are stark. Half of the population distrust the Metropolitan Police, and if nothing changes, motions to disband or split up the force are likely to grow louder.
The city of New York is stepping up security outside the Manhattan District Attorney's office where former President Donald Trump could possibly appear for an indictment. A probe into allegations that Trump used party money to silence porn star Stormy Daniels over an alleged affair is wrapping up. Trump himself said he expects to be charged soon. New York's mayor was asked when this might happen.
The DA is going to make that determination, and we're doing what we always do. We're monitoring comments on social media, and the NYPD is doing their normal role of making sure that there's no inappropriate actions in the city.
At the weekend, Trump said on his own social media platform that he expected to be arrested on Tuesday and urged his supporters to protest, bringing back images of his rallying calls ahead of the January 6th Capitol riots. If Trump is indicted, he will be the first former president to face criminal charges. At the center of the case is Stormy Daniels and how Trump reimbursed his former lawyer, Michael Cohen, after he paid Daniels $130,000 ahead of the 2016 presidential election. Trump is currently at his home in Florida. He has vowed to continue his campaign to become the Republican nominee in the 2024 presidential election, even if he is indicted, and there is nothing the US Constitution can do to stop him. Teachers from all over Bolivia marched on Monday in La Paz in a third week of protests. They are demanding more teachers for public schools, a higher education budget, and reject the new curriculum proposed by the ministry. The rally comes amid growing street demonstrations against the government of Bolivian President Luis Arce. Education is free and compulsory up to high school, but teachers claim that the quality of education is below that of neighbouring countries. At one point, police used pepper spray to repel the demonstrators.
The International Monetary Fund has approved a nearly €2.79 billion bailout programme for Sri Lanka to help salvage the country's bankrupt economy. Last year, it suspended its foreign debt repayments amid a severe foreign currency crisis. This was due to a fall in tourism and export revenue on account of the COVID-19 pandemic. The current crisis created severe shortages of some foods, fuel and medicines, leading to angry street protests that forced then President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to flee the country and resign.
Kyiv says the battle for Bakhmut is key to holding back Russian forces along the Eastern Front. It's why both Ukraine and Russia have invested heavily in the fight there. Shortages of ammunition have been a problem for Ukraine, so news of a shell supply plan agreed with European partners has been warmly welcomed.
Наші європейські партнери погодили спільний план, щоб прискорити постачання снарядів для нашої артилерії. Вага цього рішення – 2 мільярди євро. Передбачено як невідкладне постачання, так і виробництво боєприпасів. Це стратегічний крок, те, що додає впевненості в нашій єдності, в незмінності руху до перемоги над державою-терористом.
Advika is another fortress of the Donbas region that Moscow's forces, along with pro-Russian separatists, are trying to encircle. The US also appears to have answered the call for more ammunition in the form of a new defense package worth $350 million. It includes various types of ammunition, including a large amount of high-mobility rockets.
While sport can provide solace and an escape for athletes, the brutal reality of war is never far from the minds of the Ukrainian national gymnastics team. With the help of the Hellenic Olympic Committee, the Ukrainian ensemble took part in the Rhythmic Gymnastics World Cup in Athens this weekend. But while they practiced in Greece, their minds and hearts were in Ukraine.
У 2022 році, коли Росія повномасштабно вторглась на територію України, і в мого тата не було іншого вибору, як піти воювати. Він хотів захищати нашу сім'ю, нашу країну, і ми також за нього дуже сильно хвилюємось, але віримо, що все буде добре і ми переможемо.
The athletes say they've received love and support from the gymnastics community, but not from everyone.
Так, багато дівчат, з якими ми виступали раніше, підтримували нас з європейських країн. Звичайно, що країни-агресори взагалі з перших днів мовчали і ні слова не казали. І якщо казати зі спортивного боку, ще нас звинуватили, що вони не виступають через нас.
When they're training back home in Kyiv, the music is often punctuated by the sound of sirens and missile strikes.
Київ зараз достатньо сірий, похмурий, через те, що часто тривоги, часто ракетні удари в житлові будинки. І нещодавно від нашого залу, буквально 500 метрів, попали в будинок. Тому ми кожну хвилину в цьому залі дуже цінуємо і дуже раді, що Збройні Сили України роблять все можливе для того, щоб ми змогли тренуватися в ньому.
But they're still determined.
Με τον πόλεμο να μένεται στην Ουκρανία, η εθνική ομάδα ensemble της χώρας βρίσκεται στην Ελλάδα για το Παγκόσμιο Κύπελλο Γυμναστικής. Αυτά τα κορίτσια προσπαθούν να βιώσουν μία έστω μικρή αίσθηση κανονικότητας και να συνεχίσουν τη ζωή τους. Όμως η καρδιά και το μυαλό τους είναι πάντα πίσω στην Ουκρανία και στα αγαπημένα τους πρόσωπα. Από την Αθήνα για το Euronews, Γιάννης Καράγιοργας.